Welcome back, one and all, to the Common Sense Club and the Scott Hennen Show in a very special hour that we're going to dedicate the entire hour, the entire conversation to one topic, saving the greatest country on the face of the earth, America. It's under attack. It's a battle of good versus evil, pure and simple. And an agenda is at play from the hard left that's having a great deal of success. That was my takeaway after hearing the keynote speaker at last night's Tea Party in the middle of mid-Minnesota, Browerville, Minnesota, and the speakers were all fantastic. I mean, it really was a tremendous night. Some great local folks down there that did a fabulous job in legislative office and others that are seeking legislative office. Lee Byberg was his usual brilliant self. It just was a fabulous night. Some great information about the Voter ID Act and ProtectMyVote.com and the marriage amendment. And Mark Skogerbo, the freedom poet, did a fabulous motivational talk at the end. I think it was just great. But the keynote speaker was Curtis Bowers, and he has a documentary that you must see entitled Agenda, Grinding America Down, and he is going to be our guest for the entire hour of this program. And I want you to know more about his effort over the last 2 years in researching this particular topic. He's a math teacher. He taught junior high and high school math for a couple of years, started a number of different businesses, restaurants, and was a state representative in the Idaho legislature. And started writing a monthly column letter to the editor on a particular topic. He is married to his wonderful wife, Lauren, has been for 22 years. They have 9 children, 3 girls, 6 boys. They live in rural Idaho. And the kids were along last night. I had a chance to meet them, which is kind of neat. The family sings at a number of events throughout the Northwest and very active in their church. Kids are homeschooled. They have copybook heading productions that they manage and do a lot of work. And over the last 2 years have been researching and now releasing the work of Agenda, Grinding America Down. The documentary actually won a grand prize for Best of Festival at the 2010 San Antonio Independent Christian Film Festival. And is out there through the grassroots efforts now. Mistakenly, yesterday, I said that the DVD and the documentary was about Agenda 21. And there's parts of that with Agenda 21 that are related to the UN, but there's even more to this. And it's not a conspiracy theory, plain and simple. Welcome to the program, Curtis Bowers. Curtis, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Looking forward to this conversation. We don't do this often, but the topic warrants it. Your DVD is well done, and I think educating ourselves to the agenda and the desires of folks is something extraordinarily important. This would be a great little movie night contribution, folks, to get this and have a conversation with some neighbors or family members or whatever. I really recommend it. AgendaDocumentary.com. We'll give you that address before we get done. But let's go back to how it is. A legislator writing a letter for the editor ends up doing the research for a book, a documentary like this, and this effort. Tell us a little bit about how you came to take this on.
Well, I had the privilege of going to a meeting back in 1992, just as a graduate student in college. An older man asked me to go to this meeting at the University of California, Berkeley. And what it was is the Communist Party USA was splitting off a new group called the Committees of Correspondence. And he said, hey, go listen to what they have to say. I mean, communism is supposed to be dead, so what are they going to be talking about? Because the Berlin Wall had come down, the Soviet Union had dissolved, and now this is the summer of 92, and they're having a meeting. So I said, sure, I'll go to that. It sounded kind of fun. And I went, took notes, and tape recorded some sessions and stuff. And, again, overall was not very impressed with the strategy they had to take us down from within. And so I sent the stuff back to the gentleman, got on with my life. And it wasn't until 16 years later, when I was a state representative in Idaho, that as I saw this environmental regulation that just kept coming through, the legislature and businessmen were saying, please don't pass that, it'll direct my business and stuff. All of a sudden the light went on, and I started to think back to that meeting, and I realized that was one of the many different things they talked about, is how they wanted to use the environmental movement to destroy our free markets in America. And all of a sudden I started to think more about that meeting and all the other things they had said about destroying our families and our traditional morality, and I realized, wait a minute. That stuff that seemed crazy back in 92 is now it's not at all. It's the mainstream thought. I mean, they wanted us, like they said in 92, they wanted us to accept homosexuality. They thought if we would accept that, it would just break down the foundation of morality we have in America, which they thought was a good thing. They thought our morality is evil and wrong and wasn't good. So anyway, as I started to dig in more, I wrote a letter to the editor about that meeting. It exploded into a huge story, and I realized then, hey, something's going on here. So I started to dig in, and I spent 2 years full-time trying to find out why is America disintegrating from within.
The research on this is well worth and you've done a fabulous job of condensing this into, bite-sized pieces so you get the story from beginning to end, but there's plenty of examples in the writings, and when you say they, we're really talking about the Communist Party of the United States, right?
Yeah, the Communist Party, and then their fellow travelers, the Democratic Socialists of America, and these multitude of nonprofits and just radical leftists they're really all kind of marching in step together to just dismantle the traditional America that most of us love and appreciate and are thankful for. Their philosophy is that it has to go. We have to destroy it completely down so we can rebuild it back up in the way we want it to be.
In their own words, what is their agenda?
Well, one of the people's agenda of the Frankfurt School that came here, one of the leaders of that, Willie Munzenberg, said his goal for the whole Frankfurt School to infiltrate our colleges and universities, and he said, quote, we want to do this, quote, we want to make the West so corrupt it stinks, unquote. They wanted to rot us morally from the inside out. So that was some of the people involved. And other groups, just the Fabian Socialist Society, they said we're going to use, instead of revolution to bring about a socialist America and a socialist world, we're going to use evolution. We're going to slowly, over time, infiltrate the institutions of influence and change people from within, get them to buy into these ideas, repackage them and sell them under terms like social justice and things that sound wonderful on the outside but actually don't mean what they sound like they mean, and things like that. So that's what they have done.
Get control of the schools is another one you mentioned last night. How do they, in their own words, again, how do they see using education for their purposes?
Well, education has always been a key of anyone wanting to get control of the people, whether it's Hitler or Stalin or Lenin or Mao. The first thing they did when they came into office is get control of writing the curriculum for the schools, because they knew to get the youth, you have it all. And so, yes, they wanted to dumb down the curriculum in their own words. They wanted to use it, as like you said, as a transmission belt to promote socialism. And they wanted to get control of teachers' associations. And we see that how successful they've been at doing that. I mean, the NEA alone, as I mentioned last night, which is the most powerful teacher association in America in control of our schools, the curriculums, and what's being done, they passed a resolution a year ago in committee and actually passed. It wasn't just brought forward by some radical. It passed through. They wanted to take October 1st throughout all our public schools to celebrate Chairman Mao's successful communist revolution in China.
That's a National Education Association. Again, you only need to take their own words to understand what their agenda is here. More with Curtis Bowers after a break. Agenda, grinding America down, the full story, the full hour. Karl Marx, the father of communism, said, quote, my object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. That is the father of communism, the American Communist Party. And you say communist and you instantly think conspiracy theories and everything else. But again, the amount of research and work that went into Agenda, Grinding America Down, by our guest, Curtis Bowers, is very well documented, right out of the books, the articles, and the speeches. And probably rather than saying the communists are out to get us, it's really the mob that is the hard left that's agendas at play here. Would that be? I mean.
Yeah, it seems like they've all just kind of, the left has kind of crystallized into one movement, I think being directed by the communist ideology, although many would say, I'm not a communist, I already know what that is. But they've just kind of captured the whole movement and given them a vision of creating this socialist utopia, but all the plays are coming straight out of the traditional Communist Manifesto and Karl Marx and the writings of these people who were communists. I mean, as you were talking about earlier, some of the goals that they talked about, goal number 20, this is from 1958, the Communist Party, goal 20, we want to infiltrate the press and gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Well, boy, have they done that. I mean, goal 24, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. I mean, just think about that. We have an obscene society. Even women nowadays say things that would have been a shock 20, 30 years ago to hear them say. Goal number 25, break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. It goes on, and these are from 1958. In the 1958 America, these things were not acceptable at all. But, of course, today, we live in a pornographic society, and they have been incredibly successful at kind of rotting us from the inside out through immorality.
Talk about goal number 27. It's one I wrote down from your talk last night.
Yes. Well, goal 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible. I mean, think about that right now. What are so many of our churches talking about? Social justice, which is really just socialism and communism and progressivism. That's their main focus instead of talking about Jesus Christ dying on the cross to save lost sinners, or where we as individuals are supposed to go out and have charity and be charitable to those that are poor. Instead, they're saying, no, the government should be doing this. Well, that very thing defies the biblical gospel of we as individuals, as Christians, are to be doing that so we can hold them accountable and help them. I mean, of course, government charity produces enslavement and entitlement. It destroys the poor. It doesn't help them. And we've had 50 years of trying that out, and we see, that really does destroy them. So it's just... once they knew back even in the 1930s, they talked about over and over again, we've got to get in the seminaries and push them to the left. We've got to get these people away from the Bible. We have to discredit the Bible. And we've got to get them off of the absolutes of the Bible and get them on to just being do-gooders. Go do some good stuff, but don't push your Christianity on us. And they've been effective at doing that.
So this agenda really goes back to, I quoted Karl Marx just to give a bit of a wake-up call from the father of communism. But these agenda items you're talking about, these goals, how long have they been at trying to, infiltrate the churches as they state in their stated goal, or to promote homosexuality as normal, natural, and healthy? Pornography is perfectly morally acceptable. Eliminate all laws on obscenity. Get control of schools. I mean, again, their stated goals. How long have they been at this?
That particular list is from 1958, but as I've studied their actual books and their writings and what they said, I found it just constantly throughout the 30s as well. It seems to really have taken root in the 1930s through the Frankfurt School and John Dewey, who's the father of public education. He was totally in line with all of this. He was a member of the Socialist Society in America, and he even went over to the Soviet Union back then and studied their way of education to bring those ideas back to America. I mean, so that's how radical the father of our public education has been, and that's why you wonder, why are our kids getting a good education? I don't understand it. Well, that was never the intention of it. They want to dumb them down where they will be willing tools of the state that will be happy to have a government job the rest of their life, will be happy to just do the things they're told to do as long as they can watch their TV in the evenings or whatever. And that's the intent. That's why they don't know about anything about reading, writing, arithmetic, or history, or science, or math, because that was his plan. He was against that. He wanted a robotic-type person that had no initiative, no independence, simply would just do whatever the collective told them to do, and they have successfully done that. I'm a businessman. Go ahead.
Go ahead and finish what you're talking about. I was just going to talk about what was amazing is, you're talking about things that have roots in the 30s that obviously well documented in the 50s, and in that context of the culture at that time, very different than it is today. You look at it now and you go, all the stuff they started working on in the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s. Now we're seeing the root of that. You go to something in 1992, obviously way decades later, and then a light bulb goes off in 2008 and goes, remember that thing I was at 15, 16 years ago? Is it a case of, it's useful to go back and say, hey, here's what their stated goals are. Their own words. Nobody cooking up conspiracy theories. Here's what their plan is. And look at, through the sweep of the amount of time where our culture is, they've been pretty darn successful. There's no other way to suggest that their agenda's working well. Isn't it, Chris?
Oh, my word. It is incredible. I mean, to really think how such a minuscule minority that has been totally committed to their cause of just dismantling this country, what they have accomplished in 50, 60 years is mind-boggling. And it's, and as I studied more and more and ended up making this film, I realized what I heard in 92 was nothing new at all. It was new to me, so I was shocked to have heard it then. But as I studied now, I realized, no, they just happen to be restating what they had already been doing for a while at that meeting. And so I thought it was a brand new agenda, but it wasn't. It's something they've been working on for 50 years already. So my point in the movie, and I think your point in having your show and what you do every day to educate and inform people, is this. We have got to know that we are in a battle for our country. We have to know that. Otherwise, we're not going to engage in the battle, in the culture war, in the battle for the hearts and minds of our children and our grandchildren. If we don't understand there's a war going on, we're not going to be preparing them for the battle they are entering as they go out into the world. And that's the point of this movie. That's the point of your show. It's to educate people, to let them see in 90 minutes. They'll watch this and they'll realize, wow, we're in a dire situation. But that doesn't mean to give up and put the white flag up. That means I need to start getting involved in what is going on. That was our hope and our prayer in making this film as a family. We said if we could do anything to help wake up the Christians and conservatives in America to understand what has happened to this country, why it has happened, and what they need to be doing to make a difference, if we can do that with just even a few people, we will have had a successful project. And I am so thankful for this.
And we're going to get to that because it's not too late. More to come with Curtis Powers, the documentary, the movie you must see, Agenda, Grinding America Down. More coming up. We're chatting with Curtis Powers, who's put out a fabulous documentary entitled Agenda, Grinding America Down. You can get it at agendadocumentary.com. The Best of Festival Award, one of the American Crystal Film Awards, Christian Film Award festivals, and it is a fascinating look at the people and the groups that have successfully targeted America's morality and freedom in their effort to grind America down. In their own words. It's pretty amazing. By the way, quick news note, Darrell Issa is going to be in Fargo tomorrow, the chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. They're holding a field hearing in Fargo. Congressman Rick Berg is hosting that. There'll be a couple of the members of the committee here. It's going to be at NDSU at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Beckwith Recital Hall on the campus of, and the idea here is to take a look at what's happening as a result of energy development of the Bakken Formation and how that is contributing to America's domestic energy independence and connect the dots to the threats to it, which are many, and they largely come back to something we're talking with Curtis about, an environmental agenda. A attack on capitalism. All these dots connect. That's the amazing thing. And they're all designed to do one thing, and that's stop the greatest country on the face of the earth. But, even the headline I put on it after watching your documentary and hearing you last night and seeing all this research play out in a very factual, concise, nice 90-minute way is that we can point to the environment and we can point to schools and churches here. They're after the basic rules of morality. This is a war on morality, and morality that says, hey, that's our enemy. They think, hey, our greatest strength is our morality, so they're out to get our morality. And from that's where the integration of the culture, that's where everything else, all these different spin-offs on what's happening in government, that's the bottom line, isn't it, Curtis?
It is, and our founding fathers clearly understood that too. They wrote on and on about that. They said the only way you can be as free as we are allowing and setting this government up to have people be free is if they are moral. Otherwise, it will not work. The freedom will actually destroy the people if they are not moral. They'll just self-destruct from within, and that's, of course, a huge part of what is happening to America today. We still have a lot of freedoms, but the people, the generations coming up, don't have the morality to be able to handle that. They're self-destructing through drugs and alcohol, and, 42% of all children born in America last year, all children, not just this group or that group, all births in America were to single mothers. If that doesn't show how successful they have been, that's unbelievable. And we know from research the odds of a child having a successful life and being a contributing member of society if they're raised by only one parent, they don't have a mother and a father in the home, is minuscule. We know that. And so, again, it's just that deterioration. Free enterprise works best and only works when people trust each other because there's honesty, there's integrity, and that's when it thrives. It explodes because everyone is buying and selling with everyone. But once that is gone, that character, that morality, the ethics, then everyone is calling for a government. Hey, you better inspect what he's doing. I want to make sure what I'm buying from him is what he said it was. We want people to oversee all the companies on the stock market because, hey, what if they're lying to us about how much money they made? And so it just allows government to explode in size when people aren't moral.
John Adams said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. So, again, this is the... They know that and they, by any reasonable account of what their goals are, as you stated pretty well throughout this discussion today and doing the documentary. And, again, it's not anybody putting wild conspiracy theories or motives into their way of thinking. It's them in their own words. We've got an enemy here that's very close to accomplishing their plan of destroying the greatest country in the history of the world. That's not too dire of an assessment of when you look at what their stated goals are and where they're at, where our culture is at, the attacks on morality that are happening today. That's not too alarmist. That's hopefully a wake up call, right, Curtis?
Exactly, a wake-up call. We've got to get back to the basics. We've got to, those of you listening that are fathers and mothers, you need to be spending time teaching and training and discipling your children so they understand why they believe what they do and why we are chosen to be conservatives as opposed to being liberals or progressives. They need to understand the ideas of both sides and see the fallacies and the flaws. We need to be involved in what's going on. Yes, voting is very important, but that's just the basic level. We need to vote, but we need to be involved in our little communities, in our city councils, in our school boards. We need to just take the time to invest in this wonderful country because if we lose it, there's no other place to go. That's the problem. It's like, let's just move somewhere else. There is nowhere to go. If we lose America, we have lost everything. And that shame on us after all the tremendous price that has been paid for us to be free. When I think about, every time I do, it just tears me up. Think about the hundreds of thousands of boys buried all over this world so we can have the freedom to teach our children, to raise them the way we think is best, so we can be free to start businesses and to use the talents we've been given, to use the natural resources that God has blessed this country with. That's what it's about. But when we have not taken the time to protect those things, it's like a slap in the face of those boys that gave everything, and we're not willing to give anything. And I encourage you, it's time to fight for our country, because it's the best thing going.
How have they pulled this off? How have we not? I mean, is it a slow boil, or is it? How have they done it?
They've done it through gradualism. Yes, it's just been a little step here, a little step there, but every year, always going in their direction. They push us and push us and push us until we finally stand up and say, hey, we don't want you to do that. And then they step back a step or two and say, oh, we're sorry, okay, let's compromise then. Now, aren't you into compromising? And they always force us to compromise with their radical ideas, which means that every time we do, we're always moving to the left. We never even once accidentally go back to the right. And that's why, even though it's been little steps for the most part, but it's been over 50 or 60 years, we're a completely different country today as a people, as a government, as a society than we were 50, 60 years ago. And so we've got to know also this battle that we're in, that we need to engage in, it's not going to disappear overnight either. We have to have the same commitment they had to unravel this thing to put it back together, and it's going to be a long process. They've taken 70 or 80 years to destroy this wonderful country that our founding fathers set up with such biblical principles, and it's going to take us decades to get it back, but it's worth doing. There's nothing more valuable or purposeful or meaningful you could do with your life.
By the way, our telephone number is 855-200-1776. Email Scott at ScottHennen.com. Starting to get through those with questions and trying to get through all of the information in this 90-minute documentary in the 4 short segments that, although it's unusual for us to take one guest and take the whole hour, is worth every moment of this. Still not enough time to cover it, which is why you want to go to agendadocumentary.com and see this. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about how this relates to the current political culture, what we do about it, whether there's still time to ultimately push back, and wrap up our conversation with the filmmaker, Curtis Bowers, on Agenda, Grinding America Down. An agenda that has been successful in coming very close to destroying our culture. More after this. Don't go away. Back on the Common Sense Club and the Scott Hennen Show, chatting with Curtis Bowers, who's done America a great service now, traveling the country with his family, distributing the DVD of the documentary Agenda, Grinding America Down. It's not just another conspiracy theory. It is a fabulous contribution to what has brought us to this place in our culture. You can find it at agendadocumentary.com. If you don't have Internet access, I have a toll-free number. We'll put all this up at ScottHennen.com, 877-527-2111, 877-527-2111, or agendadocumentary.com. Do you know the most chilling thing of the whole 90 minutes? To me was learning that Saul Alinsky, who wrote the book Rules for Radicals, and taken many of these teachings and advocating them and infiltrating the schools and everything else, connected with a lot of the Bill Ayers, Barack Obama buddies in Chicago, that he dedicated his book to Lucifer, the devil.
That shocked me, too. When I saw that, I said, it just shows where this thing is. We know as Christians where this whole thing's coming from, but I was surprised to see that some of them are enough in touch. They understand where it's coming from, too, and they're happy about that. And they're happy to be serving Lucifer. So, yeah, it's really crazy.
But this is a battle of good versus evil, plain and simple. I mean, Rick Santorum got in a bunch of trouble, during the presidential nominating process because he was down at well, actually, it happened in 2008, but somebody unearthed a speech that he had given at Catholic Ave Maria University in Florida a couple of years earlier, and he actually quoted our bishop at the time, Samuel Aquila, who talked about the father of lies, that being, of course, Satan, and that Rick Santorum said, look, if you're the devil, who else are you going to attack? Paul Harvey's got a piece, I don't know if you've seen the Paul Harvey thing saying, if you're the devil, Would you do this? Would you do this? Would you do this?
Yeah,
And it's sort of the same thing that you're talking about here. And, of course, the greatest country on the face of the earth is where the devil's going to set his sights. My point is this, and, some people see that as crazy talk, good versus evil. What do you mean? Go back and look at their agenda, watch this, and then you tell me if we aren't in a battle of good versus evil, because that's what this is about, Curtis, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like Whitaker Chambers said, the entire battle, he was a communist himself, infiltrated our government, and then he became a Christian and broke with the Communist Party and started to point out who his friends were in the government. But he himself said the entire battle can be summed up in 3 words: God or man. God or man. That's the whole thing. We'll either follow God and believe His principles and be free and be moral and be accountable to Him, or we will allow ourselves to follow man and be accountable to man and follow their rules and be controlled by them in a dictatorship.
And I don't hesitate one iota to define evil as anybody that wants to destroy the family. But that's what they set out to do. And by the way, they're succeeding. 50% of marriages end in divorce. You mentioned earlier, statistics about 40% of children born out of wedlock, 3,000 women every day aborting their babies. Sexually transmitted diseases is rampant, 19 million new cases a year. Relativism is what the schools teach. All of their agenda items, their stated goals being, and destroying the family being a prominent one of them, right there with the black and white statistics are a problem that we are dealing with. So, and by the way, are you referred to as a kook by people? I mean, the people think this is nutty. They think it's. I'm not talking about the crowd we were with in Browerville last night, but you're not going to see this on Fox News Channel. It's one of the reasons Glenn Beck got fired, I guess, or CNN, or the Washington Post, or anything else. And quite honestly, even the political establishment, you wouldn't hear Mitt Romney talking about the agenda, would you?
No, unfortunately not, because it's something. Again, whenever they do attack, it's always just belittling me as a person or whatever. They never attack the facts I've stated. They never attack saying, oh, this isn't what they really said or did or whatever. They just attack the man, as they're so famous for doing, and discredit the messenger and in hopes it'll discredit the message. And so they've been so effective at doing that for the last 40, 50 years through the media. It's silenced a lot of people on our side because they go, well, I don't want to be attacked, and no one likes to be attacked. I don't like it either. But it's the time, it's too late in the battle to stop allowing them to silence us with the truth because we're scared of them, their name calling. We have to ignore that foolishness and say, hey, the more I'm being attacked by the opposition means the more effective I am being. That means the more success I am having, and I should be thankful for that.
One emailer says, why do rhinos laugh at this stuff? Rhinos being Republicans in name only, again, in the political sense.
Yeah, they laugh at it because their hearts and minds are principled to really believe in the ideas that the traditional Republican platform stood for, of less government and less regulation and lower taxes and allowing individuals to be responsible for their own families and to be able to do the things that you're free in America to do. They're not really for those things. They've come over to our side to push it to the left so they get into a no-lose situation. Like the last 2 elections, what have our choices been? Last election, McCain, who is, if you studied his voting record, would be a traditional Democrat, but he was running against a radical Marxist. So you have, that's our choice. At this election, again, we have a Romney who is better than Obama, no question about that. But you look at his life and what he stood for, he's also a traditional Democrat versus Obama, who we know what he's all about now. And so what a shame in a country of 330 million people that the media is so powerful. We've allowed them to have that power. We've listened to their influence, that they're able to pick both candidates, even in our presidential election.
Yeah, and by the way, you make a point in the DVD to say, if Ronald Reagan was president and our economy was booming right now, we still would have the culture where we're at. So, as bad as Barack Obama is, as much as he subscribes to much of these theories and, his own associations speak volumes, this is larger than one election, one person, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, it's a war for our culture. That's why you can't go, I'm going to be active till November, and then if we can get Obama out of there, our job is done. No, regardless of who is in there in November, our job has just begun. This will not end, and anyone that is listening in your lifetime, this battle will not end. The other side is never going to magically disappear now and disappear with their influence and their kind of preying on our children and stuff. That's not going away. But so we've got to engage. If we can get Romney in there, we need to put so much pressure on him to do the things he talked about doing to get elected that he just feels he is forced to do them, whether he wants to do them or not, the conservative things that every politician talks about before they get in there.
It's impossible not to watch this movie and say we are very close to the enemy winning in this battle versus good versus evil. But you also make a point. It is not too late. Only 30 seconds left, but tell our listeners what they should do.
You need to first and foremost go after your children and grandchildren if you are in location to do that and spend time and influence and teach and train them. Then you need to get involved with other groups that are like-minded to your beliefs and get involved in there and start participating and use your talents that you have as a group to make a big difference in your local communities and local areas and at the state level and at the federal level. It is so important. And then those of you that are Christians need to be praying every day for our country because there's nothing more important than you can do than that.
There's great resources out there. This documentary is a great one to start with, agendadocumentary.com. You handed me one of another Jeffrey King film called Crying Wolf, exposing the wolf reintroduction to Yellowstone National Park. Good example of these extremist environmentalists, which are all part of the agenda. We're seeing that at play in North Dakota right now in so many ways with the attack on the prosperous economy through the EPA. So there's good resources out there. Find them, share them.